Hey everyone, welcome back to the Safety Gap Podcast, where we explore the innovations and partnerships that are changing the game in emergency response and helping close the safety gap in our communities. Today, we're diving into a new development in emergency response, connecting security cameras directly to 911. Our guest is Cooper Briscoe, Director of Product Marketing at Eagle Eye Networks. Eagle Eye is revolutionizing how first responders access critical information during emergencies with their 911 camera sharing technology. This episode is filled with fascinating insights into how schools, businesses, and public safety agencies are harnessing real-time video to save lives and make communities safer. So let's jump in. Welcome back, everybody. This is Cassidy. I have my lovely co-host Karin here. Karin, how you doing?
Good morning. I'm good. I'm somewhat rested, but caffeinated.
Yeah, so we usually record this on a Friday after Karin has traveled around the country. But now we're on Monday, and so you're starting the week at home. I hope so.
I'm at home. I was traveling last week, multiple cities. So yes, I got some catch-up sleep over the weekend.
And rumor has it you get to stay at home all week. Is that true?
Rumor has it. So I'm going to knock on wood 3 times, as my daughter says it, and see if that rings true.
Well, it's well deserved, and hopefully you're there for the rest of the year. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah.
Well, let's welcome our good friend Cooper. Cooper, wonderful seeing you.
Likewise, Cassidy. Thanks for having me on the show.
Yeah, it's been a while since we've caught up, so looking forward to this conversation. Why don't we just jump right in? Tell us a little bit about you, Eagle Eye Networks, what you all do, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, my pleasure. Well, first, I'll tell you a little bit about me. I'm Cooper Briscoe, Director of Product Marketing here at Eagle Eye Networks. But before we talk about Eagle Eye, I've been a security professional for 20 years. So my entire career has been spent within the electronic or physical security space, if you will. I have spent time in PSAPs and ECCs and central stations or alarm receiving centers, whatever you want to call them. Never on the life safety side or the public safety side of things, but always within the security industry. So I've got experience with call centers, emergency types of situations. I've done residential security, access control, video, but I've been doing this a really long time within this space. I've got a passion for it, and I have always loved watching how the technology ultimately changes what we do today and how we interact with things within our lives. And so that ultimately led me, Cassidy and Karin, to Eagle Eye Networks, because as somebody that's been in the security industry, you follow trends, you follow companies, you look for up and comers, and you watch growth. And so Eagle Eye Networks, which is the leading cloud-based video surveillance company on the planet, has been driving forward with new technology into this industry for a very long time, has done a lot of amazing things, and I've kept my eye on them. So very excited to talk a little bit more about Eagle Eye today, but that's a bit of an intro on who I am and Eagle Eye Networks, cloud-based leader in video surveillance.
Yeah, why don't we pick it up from there? So being like a novice in this space, I would think, hey, cameras have kind of been around for a while, but I know in conversations with you, you've educated me on this notion of cloud-based and IP-based cameras and so forth. So maybe to kind of start at the highest level, what's been kind of the transition in security around the use of cameras and kind of historically where it's been and kind of where it's going that's kind of brought Eagle Eye to be the leader in this space?
Yeah, good question. I'll actually give you a little bit of background there. Working with central stations that are responding to fire alarms, intrusion alarms, panic buttons, etc. You started getting video brought into the world of a central station years and years and years ago. And ultimately, the growth and adoption of video started to actually help a lot of end customers that were doing physical tours with human beings around a location late at night, right? So the idea behind it was, look, we don't need physical security, or you might have physical security during the day when people are working, but at night, that's just a building that nobody's around. And so what we used to have physical security guards that would walk a perimeter of a building. And literally some of these buildings would have a little check-in point, right? I physically push this button, proving that I walked around the building. That evolved to central stations understanding, well, hold on a second. If we're just looking and doing a bit of a welfare check to make sure that nothing is happening, why can't we do a video guard tour? And so this concept of video in a central station was not just verifying real alarm events were happening, but actually proactively saving end customers money and offering a service that made it convenient, cost effective, and ultimately brought video into a world where it wasn't being used previously. And I think a lot of what I'm excited to talk about today is we're doing that again in the world of dispatch, in the world of ECCs, right? And we're starting to bring video in, which is new and different. But I think I always go back to this, Cassidy. Everybody assumes that when a video camera's on, that somebody's sitting and watching it, right? I think we've learned over time, they're often deterrents. They're often offline. And so what technology has done to evolve of late is say, if a video or if a camera's gone offline, I want to know about it. I want to actively or proactively get a notification to take action, all right? That becomes incredibly important as we go down this world of when to present video to a telecommunicator in the world of an ECC. If a video is offline and I can't see footage from the camera, then that's noise to me, right? And I want to ensure that we don't show that video or that camera icon to somebody to slow them down. And so that's just a starting point. I could go into AI and all sorts of stuff in the future here, but that's kind of a starting point of how we've slowly seen video creep in and be introduced into the world of central stations, PSAPs, and emergency call centers.
Well, since you brought it up, let's stay on this topic. So I love the explanation of kind of the evolution of video in the central station. Maybe, Karin, I'll turn it over to you. Kind of, how would you give the history, and maybe it's a short history, of video in a 911 center?
Probably a short history because we really hadn't had it before. And in some cases, certain folks did several years ago, where you were trying to look at your highway cameras. And they were really poor quality, just trying to figure out if there was like something, a traffic accident, and there was a backup, or you're looking here in Colorado, up in the mountain areas, like is so causing issues on this exit, or like what's going on with traffic. And so you kind of, traffic cams were interesting. And then we knew that camera systems were available out in the community because when you would send somebody out on a burglary or even, a pretty big incident, those officers were having to go door to door to door to door to ask for camera feeds from businesses and residences to share those camera feeds, but dispatch didn't necessarily see them. And then you'd start kind of seeing the evolution of people trusting video and wanting to tell you that, hey, I have video at my house of, the bad guy that broke into the house or of the suspect that did XYZ. And still, like, dispatch couldn't see it, right? And so you're trying to gather that description as accurately as possible. And then there was a challenge with actually sharing the footage that a citizen wanted to share with public safety. So you kind of see technologies coming in where, you can opt in to share camera systems, but that always went to investigations. And investigations has to do the on-scene work first. And then they can go back and look at the footage, piece the investigation together, paint the picture post-incident, sometimes days later, right? Now what we're seeing is the ability to have camera access when an event is occurring, and that changes the game for 911. Now, are we always going to look at the video? Not always, but it's there when you need it. And so you can't necessarily tell when they need it, but gosh, I don't want to have dispatch say anymore, it would have been nice to have access to that. Now you can have access to that and just click it when it's needed. And so I think that really makes it important that it's the telecommunicator's choice and it's the agency's choice and who has access as well. So maybe it's not all your telecommunicators. Maybe it's your tactical dispatchers, your senior folks. Maybe you use it in training to help them even, guide towards how you ask for suspect information and how you're piecing that top to bottom way together. So I think for 911 folks, like broaden our scope to what are the possibilities of having that access to video. How could you use it in your center, even outside of just the, I'm going to use it for this call from a training perspective and getting your folks ready for the evolution of what our telecommunicator is too.
Yeah, I appreciate that explanation. I'm going to tie it back to something Cooper said, and that is, the way I think about video historically has been that great, there was a camera there, nobody was looking at it, and, it doesn't really get looked at until post-incident, which then begs the question as a non-expert like myself would be like, why are we not looking at the camera when the incident is actually happening? And so we've kind of alluded to this. I'm going to come back to you, Cooper. I would love you to walk through, like, what are we doing about this in terms of 911 camera sharing? Kind of where did this idea come from within Eagle Eye? And you're obviously the first, as far as I know, in the industry to do that. I'd love you to share a little bit more about it.
Yeah. So look, all good ideas are an opportunity where the right people come together. So I'll shout out Michael and Dean, our two founding fathers, if you will, having the foresight to understand that there was a problem that existed, and that problem is telecommunicators are relying on secondhand information that at times can be out of date to do their job the best they possibly can. And the net result of that is ultimately that you might have a first responder that is not fully aware of a situation, or we might be taking actions that otherwise we would have had we had different understanding of the situation. And so what we're doing, Cassidy, is we're ultimately taking the leader in two different spaces, cloud-based video surveillance and life safety in the world of 911 centers. And we have built an integration so that we could say, if 911 emergency takes place and the end customer had proactively determined they wanted to share their video cameras when that emergency took place, that we can now do it. And so we've built an integration, we've built this capability and this technology. And so I want to talk through how it works a little bit because it's important to understand. Okay. And I want to start with the private sector because there's some things that are very important, right? When you say the words video and law enforcement, and I hope people chuckle at this, everyone immediately has a reaction, from PTA board members to superintendents to compliance officers at big companies. When you say video and law enforcement, it causes a reaction. So when I talk about this to the private sector, I always start with this, okay? Number one, you as a business owner, the person that has the video surveillance system, you are the starting point. You decide if you want to share cameras. Not only that, you decide which cameras you don't want to share. So for example, let's say you had a camera in a server room. There's no reason for whatever, that anybody would ever have an emergency in there, you would think. So I'm not going to share that camera. But I do have a cafeteria, my external cameras, if I'm in a school, maybe hallways in between classrooms. So the starting point begins with the owner of the system, whether that's a school, a business, a municipality. But you then get to take a look at your system and say, I am going to choose to proactively share these cameras in the event of a future emergency. So that's the first piece. They start and determine which cameras to share. Number two, and this is a big deal, both in the ECC side as well as the private sector. They do not need to create a login for someone within dispatch of the ECC to access footage. This is a big deal for two reasons. Number one, on the private side, that's user management. That's scary. When I give someone a login, they can be a nefarious actor. They can log in anytime they want. It gets scary in the world of privacy. From an ECC standpoint, if I'm in dispatch and I take a 911 call, the last thing that I want to do is go, oh, what was that login? I think I have another system in there. I do my little swivel chair. I'm looking up. You guys know. All right. And now I've logged into another system that I haven't used and I haven't logged into for months, or maybe I've never logged into it. And time matters in the world of response to 911 emergencies, right? I don't need to tell this audience, this isn't about investigations and a follow-up or forensic follow-up. This is about a real-time incident and what can we do to best solve that problem right away. So no logins are being created. I can pick and choose which cameras to share. The nice thing is, even if I'm not using Eagle Eye Networks, because Eagle Eye Networks is an open platform, we work with any industry standard cameras. Unless it's a proprietary camera, you can assume it's compatible. What this means for people in the community is this isn't an Eagle Eye sales rep trying to get you to start using our system. This is a person that has worked within the life safety sector to solve a problem and is bringing technology to you We are so passionate about it that you don't even have to start using our system. We can literally install a single device and take advantage of the cameras that already exist. Okay, that's a big deal. And it expands the scope of opportunity of who we can go for. So pretty big deal there. Okay. The final thing I'll say from a private sector standpoint is this. We have a closed pipe to these cameras and accessing these cameras at all times. The only thing that opens the pipe and grants access to cameras that were proactively shared is the 911 emergency, okay? When I say all of those things to a principal, a superintendent, somebody in compliance at a big corporation, everybody says, okay, those are all the concerns that I have. I feel much better about things, okay? From the ECC standpoint, what's important to us is not introducing new protocol, new training, a pop-up window, an integration, the requirement to download a new driver, anything like that. So we work with this functionality as part of the Rapid SOS portal, Unite, and it's part of the free version, and it simply works within the user interface you're using today. So as I'm a telecommunicator going through a call queue and I'm taking 911 calls, and Rapid's plotting that little red pin onto the map, what we are doing, and this is the integration behind the scenes, is we're looking from that geo point, if you will, on a map, and we're doing a geo imagery outside. Any cameras that were proactively shared in advance will now pop up onto the Rapid SOS portal. It will show up as a little icon that says a little camera icon, and it's going to show you a button that says nearby cameras have been shared, okay? From a telecommunicator standpoint, that's my cue to click the button. I can see all the cameras. If I want to look at a camera, I click it once more. One thing that's very important that's been brought to us by Karin and others within the space is we blur the footage, okay? So you don't click on a camera and immediately see what's happening. You're going to click on that camera, choose by yourself, right? This is important. It is the telecommunicator's decision whether they want to be a person that looks at that camera feed. And once they do that, they're now looking at live visual situational awareness, which is a pretty big deal. And it also stays up to date. So the last thing I'll say, because I know I've been long-winded and just going here, Cassidy, is when a call takes place, and everybody on this podcast knows, oftentimes the people calling 911 are running away from the situation. If it were a shooting or an emergency, they're leaving the building, right? A fire, they're trying to get out of the building. And what does that mean for you doing your job? That you're talking to somebody that has out-of-date information. And one of the things I love about this integration is when someone's scared and calling 911 and they flee the scene, the cameras don't leave. They're always watching at the origin or the origin of where that phone call took place and the incident occurred. So that was long-winded, but that hit a lot of it and hopefully gives you guys an understanding of what 911 camera sharing is and kind of how it works and what matters on both the private side as well as within dispatch.
Oh, I'm going to kind of just jump in here because the first part that you started with, you're working with these private companies who sometimes have that concern of, ooh, police department's going to have access to this, right? I was talking to a leader of a real-time crime center recently, and that was actually the struggle that he was sharing with me is, you know, we're not sitting here trying to monitor their facilities. We want to be there in the event of an incident, especially in areas and pockets of the city that have high crime rates. Like we want to be able to be there to protect them and to help close their cases so much faster. And so, you know, getting that relationship sometimes can be a little bit challenging. So if you do that in a way that is acceptable it's only shown when a 911 call happens, when an emergency occurs, and only for that emergency. We're not looking into your place of business or your school or your other facility at any other time, only upon that trigger of an emergency. And I think for 911 as well, when you talk about, cutting out the noise, it's only when there's an emergency call with cameras in that area that it shows you that they're there. And then you have choices to make, right? And clicking to see if you need that information and that blur factor. Either am I ready? And so mentally, I can prepare myself for what I'm about to see in that. And then, of course, you could create policies and stuff around that. So yeah, you hit on some really key things that we've been hearing from leaders in different spaces from real time to 911.
No,
Yeah.
good addition, Karin. And I'll just add, you actually hit one thing I forgot there, which is a big deal. And that is you're only accessing these cameras during the incident. You don't go home, tell a spouse or a loved one, and then come back and go, you know what, I'm going to go check out it doesn't work that way, right? You cannot come back the next day, a week later, and go access that footage. That's really important for the private sector to hear.
Yeah, I think this is an amazing explanation on both sides. And when you see it in action, I'll make sure the audience can see it. It's really intuitive. So what you walk through, Cooper and Karin, when you actually see that and kind of visually, you're like, totally get it. It's like, it's one of those things, one of those technologies where you're hearing it and you're like, huh, I never thought about it that way. And then you see it and you're like, you can't unsee it. You're like, yeah, I totally get it. It seems like something that should be used everywhere. Now, we know, though, that anytime you're bringing something completely new to a market, both on the private security side and on one side, this takes time to get adoption. And so, Cooper, I'd love you to kind of elaborate on, and then I'll go to Karin. Who do you see leaning into this early, at least the private security side? Like, what are the use cases? Who kind of just intuitively gets it after you go through your explanation? Who are the early adopters, for lack of a better word?
Yeah, good question. I hate this, unfortunately, but everybody's minds always goes to schools. That's the first one that happens. It's a massive problem that we have here and that we're trying to address. I don't need to tell anybody here. So schools are a big opportunity, but I would tell you that this is every business that has a video surveillance system. Okay, if I were the mayor of my city, I would be going to problematic street corners. And I'd be talking to the owner of the Walgreens, right? The liquor store, the pawn shop. And I would be getting access to their external cameras, okay? I could get full coverage of an external facing street within my city that might have high crime or is a high drug area. And I could simply make sure that anytime 911 calls, I know exactly what's going on. That is a really big opportunity for us. But I will tell you, this has been property management companies, communities, okay? We've got some communities that have beach access that's very difficult to get to, and they get 911 calls out there on a beach. And you would think, well, there aren't really cameras on a beach. We actually have something called an Eagle Eye cabinet system that allows you to put cameras anywhere, and it has all the cellular inside of it, so you don't have to run cables, et cetera. So we have examples where literally these communities are putting a camera on a beach, looking out at an area where people are often calling 911 because they're caught in a rip current. And now they can assess the situation as they're sending somebody out there. So the thing that I hope Karin goes a little bit deeper on is I've been completely blown away having conversations with ECC directors and telecommunicators, because I think when I started this journey personally, you go to schools, right? And you go to those school shootings. But when you start to hear these examples of, no, if somebody's calling 911 on a building fire and we learn that it's just a dumpster behind the building, we might have a completely different example. If we could validate that swatting incident that we're dealing with does not actually have any of those things going on because I'm looking at cameras, now I'm really building a powerful solution. So Karin, what are the other things that you would think of or that your team has kind of shared? Because my mind's been blown with all of these examples.
I mean, there's so many. So I can remember times that I've worked a home invasion and, within 30 minutes, the suspect has already been to the pawn shop. So when you mentioned that, I was like, oh my gosh, yes, right? So if I think about the layout of even where, our schools are, we have school, football, school, church, and then there's like a convenience store right around the corner that all the kids go to. So just kind of when you were mentioning what is the behavior of people during an emergency, especially at a facility like that, it's going to be for them to run. Where are they going to run to? Where are they going to run from? And so piecing those images together to be able to also follow the activity that's happening. Fascinating on the beach. So, I've worked with several areas, here in the US and then of course, on islands as well. And some of those challenges, like I don't know on a beach area how to really identify a nearby, you know, landmark, let's say. And so piecing together that location with video, how many people are out there? How am I going to get my marine units in? Or how am I going to get my, extra lifeguard kind of folks in? How close is it? How far is it? Like, what is the land area? Is it going to be really rocky there? Like, we are so blind to information when we're asking questions over the phone. So I love how we're creating this like picture now where it just makes more sense. And I'm able to give that guidance and even share better location information, better description of that footage that I'm seeing to my field responders. And I'm not playing the game of telephone. I'm not misinterpreting perhaps situations.
What I love the enthusiasm and kind of the imagery of these different examples. You both have outlined a lot of great responses to like initial objections. What else is preventing people from kind of making this decision? Obviously, we're seeing the uptake happen, but there's I assume, Cooper, you'd tell me like, hey, there's I don't know, 100 million cameras in the United States today that, I'm making this number up, but you get the idea, that should be shared with 911, and there's probably X percent that are shared with 911. Is it just education, or is there like some other hurdles we need to get over and before we see kind of broader adoption, if it makes any sense?
No, it's perfect question, and it's a process, right? I mean, it is a journey. Each one of these end customers, as well as each one of the ECCs. So, I mean, I'll just talk to that a little bit. Think about it this way, okay? If I'm going to have a conversation with an end customer, okay, at Eagle Eye Networks, we don't install these video surveillance systems. We work with the professional channel of security integrators, and so right now, you've already got Rapid SOS on the line, Eagle Eye Networks. That's two parties, okay? We have the end customer, like a school that has a video surveillance system. That is a third party. The local integrator is the person that is going to be working with that end customer. That is the fourth party. And don't forget, we have not forgotten about dispatch and ECC. 5 parties. So there are 5 parties that are going to be involved with every address that we are working with, okay? And that hopefully explains to you why this isn't something quick, easy, and simple. But what I will tell you, Cassidy, is happening is this. We have learned a tremendous amount, and that is when we are starting with the community and the ECCs, and we understand that they're ready to go, it makes everything a lot easier. And what I mean by that is this. When I'm in front of a superintendent or a principal at a school, working with a partner of ours, a local integrator, when we talk through the privacy side of this, it always goes very smoothly because those are their concerns, and they're always willing to take next steps. They're interested in taking the next steps. We schedule those things. There's a little bit of setup to happen. What happens in between is it goes to a different level. Okay. Now it's at the board. Now we've got a PTA meeting where this has come up here. And so there are just a lot of discussions that need to take place. But more than anything else, I would tell you it's a general public awareness of the fact that this technology exists and is solving a problem. Because the reality is, and you guys know this better than I do, a lot of people they've watched these crime scene investigation shows and they think, ooh, incidents happening. Drill into all those cameras at the Pentagon and somebody does this on a keyboard, right? And then magically, you're looking at a global network of interconnected video cameras. And you guys are laughing because that is just not reality. That isn't how it works. So I think it's been a good combination of trying to educate our channel, trying to educate the industry that this is something that exists today, and encouraging the public to kind of understand it, have these discussions. While you guys have been doing an amazing job of this, are helping with the ECC education, sheriff's departments, municipalities, police departments. I think that combination is going to slowly bring more awareness, but the adoption is exploding. It is absolutely going to start growing at a tremendous rate.
Yeah, and I love the framing of that. I think what's unique here, obviously there's a lot of folks involved, but if you're in the community, whether you're on the public safety side or, you're the school board, there's interest on both sides. So just, reach out to us. We can obviously help connect the dots between private and the public safety within your communities to kind of get this off the ground. So good explanation. In fact, to your point, when I explain this to folks who aren't in security or safety, and I give the school example and cameras and being able to share that with 911, their immediate reaction is, "You mean that's not how it works today?"
Right.
And it's like, no, that's not how it works today. We're spending money in our school districts to put cameras inside the building and outside the building, of which largely for the use case we're all concerned about, they're useless.
Yeah.
If they're not,
Yeah.
if you're not able
It's
to
a
share
scary,
this
it's
in real
scary
time.
realization.
Well, I love the explanation of this, so thank you. Let's kind of go in a different direction, and that is, I'd love you to kind of share to this audience, because of your expertise around, camera and video. Where's this industry going in terms of AI? This is obviously a hot topic. So AI meets cameras. Half the world, this scares the crap out of them. The other
Yes,
half,
that's right.
folks are, super intrigued. So I'd love you to kind of break it down. What does that look like from your context and how you see it?
No, I'd be happy to. Look, I love the question. AI, AI, AI. It is all the things people are talking about. It's outside of our industry. It's certainly within the industry. But look, I'll kind of go back to how I gave you a little bit of the evolution of video, and that's what's happening right here. Okay, I've seen some parallels to what happened with the residential smart home boom. I'll say 10 plus years ago. You started getting a couple thermostats that were smart, and some cameras that you could view from your phone, and the world started to change. The perception of security for a homeowner or a business owner began changing. And so you would start asking people, "Oh, what security system do you use?" And they would tell you the name of the camera or the, right? And so I had this realization long ago. The smart home boom was ultimately, we have a whole bunch of new technology, and it could do all sorts of cool things. And it was completely overwhelming for most laymen, most end customers, most homeowners. They had to go with somebody that was a professional. But the reality of the smart home boom that I want to tie back as an analogy here was the convergence of new technology that had to be managed. Okay. So AI is the same thing. What I mean by the smart home, just to kind of wrap that up, is you started to get things like, oh, does it do voice activation? Does it work with Google Home? Does it work with Apple? Does it work with this, with that? What about these types of lights? What about my AV system? And so every conversation started to happen around, does it work within the ecosystem? All right. And so the story of this device or that cool, slick feature started to become, how's it all tied together? Okay. So with that as the background, let's look at AI. Okay. AI now lives in a world where, most people don't like to admit, but most of those cameras that are out there in the world, nobody's watching them. AI is going to fundamentally change that. Okay. So I started earlier in the podcast, you guys, talking about the fact that most people didn't know that their camera was offline until something happened and they went to go look for the footage. So the reality of video today is that we've made some advancements. You could do pixel-based motion detection, right? If the scene changed, I can send a notification. Think about that as an early onset of AI, right? That camera and the view that it was looking at was searching for detected change within the field of view. And if they noticed it, called it a motion alert and sent that through. That's probably the earliest form of AI in the world of video that I think makes sense to this audience. But now, think about this. Where's AI going to evolve? Is it going to see that someone spilled a Diet Coke at a shopping mall, identify that as liquid on the floor, and potential threat detection due to a slip and fall? And now it's going to trigger certain things taking place. I'm going to send a Slack notification to my security team or my cleaning crew. I'm going to send an alert to the security team, right? I'm going to log an event within the system, and I'm going to send a little bit of a video clip to the person that's going to go clean it. That is AI starting to watch cameras while we sleep. But the rules engine and the video management system providers that are going to ultimately say all of this stuff out here is just noise, unless we can intelligently build mechanisms to say when something occurs, we do a little if this, then that logic. We look at the time of day, the thing that's occurring, and then we choose to take action. That's what I think you're going to see in the world of AI and video, is that the cameras are becoming intelligent, looking for things, and not just notifying, but actually taking action and moving away from what I would call reactive to more proactive behavior that can be taken to get ourselves out of situations. Now, that could lead in the world of dispatch and ECCs to AI-generated things that could potentially go through a human verification process and then quickly get to you, all right? But that's what I think is exciting and something I could geek out about this for hours. But it's why I'm excited to be in the space that I'm in, not just technology partnerships like this, but seeing where video and the introduction of AI has ultimately taken us as an industry and with technology.
And when does that happen? Is it starting to happen? Do you see this in the next 3 years, 5 years? I think from listening to this, we're all like, that would be, exciting. Obviously, if we're going to use these cameras to watch over us, let's make them actually useful and proactive.
Totally agree.
So I liked how
So
you
I think
that.
what you're going to see is this. The short answer, some of this is here today, right? Some of this is here. It's already happening, but it will continue to evolve over the next 3 to 5 years. You will see a ridiculous amount of options and opportunities in terms of what AI can do. So the world of generative AI and building these models is ultimately, you're just training them. So Cassidy, if I want my cameras to go look for people that have sweet mustaches, I could train that AI to do it, okay? If I want to get a notification if somebody wearing plaid and stripes walks by, I can do that. It's just amount of time or just the amount of time and the training that you do. So yes, some of it's here today and it's going to keep coming. I think more than anything else, how do we manage it all and make it make sense so it's not just too much noise? How do we ethically go down this road to do it the right way? And 3, how do we solve business problems that ultimately detect threat, become more proactive, and are tied to things like business efficiency and optimization? What are those use cases and who's driving them? That's what AI in the world of video is going to ultimately shape into in the future.
I think there would be something, kind of cool in the eventual is when we know that there's a missing person, at risk, elderly person, somebody with dementia, right? Oftentimes we have, an image of that person. We may know what they're wearing and what they're driving, and we have to still make phone calls to notify people to look out for folks. So we're calling hospitals, we're calling convenience stores, we're calling those places that are open, especially at night, 24 hours. If eventually in the future, we could push that notification out for cameras to watch. I remember a missing child that we had here in Colorado. It was pretty horrific. And, we were calling buses and they had, video cameras on these buses. But do you see a person matching this description? And if you do, we need to know immediately, right? So there's like a whole other life-saving component in the future, how AI can be really supportive of, capturing or finding people much more quickly, saving lives more efficiently, and really how we're starting to work better together from public and private.
I think that's a great point. Oh, sorry, Cassidy, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I go for it. I just love that example.
No, so Karin, as you talk about this and this is an example of the AI that's already there. So I want to paint that scenario that you just had. Let's say that we have a missing person alert on a college campus. Okay. That college campus has hundreds of buildings, of cameras, thousands of cameras, probably geographically dispersed. Okay. One of the cool things that Eagle Eye Networks does, and this has won a whole bunch of awards in the security industry, is we were the pioneer of something called smart video search. So Karin, hypothetically, that person is missing and we know what they were wearing. I can search in using natural language. I want to find this person in a black shirt and tan cargo shorts. Okay.
Right.
And now I just looked across every camera every location, and I got matches of somebody that matched that description. That was the origin of smart video search. But it's being enhanced so that if you knew that person was this person that you've identified, Karin, I can literally, in the very near future, this is something within a quarter that will be released in public, I will have the opportunity to look in and say, oh no, that's Cassidy, 100% confirmation. I now want to find that person. Now, I'm not searching a database. I'm not pulling personally identifiable information, but I know Cassidy walked by one of my cameras and I want to find you because you're missing. I can literally say, find that person, and it will give a match of every single camera that you walked across that campus and any camera in seconds. That's where we're really getting to. And so the opportunity for more partnership in the future as these things evolve to solve these kind of real world situations, there will be plenty of them. But you telling that story, Karin, made me say it would be a disservice if I didn't talk about the fact that we've already started to go down this road in terms of AI saving time and solving problems like missing people.
Love that.
Yeah, great example. And I know I want to be cognizant of time, but let me just ask one more question on this. And that is, how do you think we get around the privacy side of this? Because when you explain that example, both of you, I'm like, super cool. And that's the way, technology should be helping keep us safe. However, there's probably another half of the people out there that's like, that scares the shit out of me because, people can surveil where I am and so forth and so on. So I'm sure you get this question all the time as a company.
It's why I cautiously go down that road when I talk about it, because I understand people's faces and reactions to that a lot. No,
Yeah.
I'm glad you bring it up. It's why I say, doing this the right way and ethically. From our standpoint, we're not crossing a line of allowing you to input a database of people, right? We don't, the police department doesn't have the ability to log into the system and say, hey, I want to go find that criminal Cassidy, and boom, I'm looking for him. So think about it more that I'm trying to solve a problem. I'm trying to locate someone that has disappeared. I know the individual that committed the crime. Now they've fled, Karin, as you said, they always do. So what am I going to do? I'm going to go look at the next locations within a vicinity that person probably fled to. And if we have cameras there and we can match them, we're helping solve that problem. A little bit different than somebody that just, logs into a website and says, hey, I want to go find Cassidy and watch him. It's not going to be working like that. But you start saying find people and faces and shirt colors. That's where people go quickly. I understand that.
Well, yeah, I can say if somebody wants to look up and watch what I'm doing, that would be the dullest video ever. So I appreciate that explanation, Cooper. Anything that you wanted us to cover that we did not cover?
No, I will. I guess one thing I'll say is this. You heard me reference it earlier. I want to just touch upon something that's helpful in the world of sheriff's departments, police departments. But I've been quite surprised here. Obviously lots of ECCs roll up to the sheriff or chief of police. Okay. So when we've been having this conversation, it's been very interesting. We're talking about the privacy side of things being very important. But if you are the chief of police and you have a budget and you have a problematic street corner, or you have, a park that has lots of drug use and you're constantly going there, I'm going to share one example with you of a police department in Mississippi that was interested in 911 camera sharing, started having these conversations, and then they brought up a scenario where they said, well, actually, we want a camera and we want to be able to log into that camera whenever we can. And so we had the conversation. We said, well, great. You're just a user of a video management system. We can have two problems solved here. So any camera you install can be viewed during emergencies by 911, but you would also then have the opportunity to log in. So I give this example to just share with you this. This is a police department that dispatched police probably 2 to 3 times per day to a single location where they had a known drug house. For whatever reason, they were not just, getting a warrant and charging in the door there and taking care of this. So they had to continuously monitor this situation. They bought one of our cabinet systems and they literally installed a camera inside of a cabinet pointing directly across the street, this home. And to listen to the police chief get giddy with excitement, explaining that within 2 days, the drug dealers were moving their couches out of the home and they simply took the camera down and moved it to the next location. There's a massive opportunity, I think, in law enforcement where these cabinet systems and these remote video surveillance systems, they weren't possible in the past. Cellular costs were too expensive. You had to run cable. And now we have the ability to go put cameras anywhere. It helps the story of 911 camera sharing, but it's also helping law enforcement because now they can get detection of motion. They can log in anytime they want. And so I've been surprised to see that a lot of law enforcement agencies have been taking advantage of our cabinet systems in conjunction with 911 camera sharing.
Yeah, I
Yes.
will say that I've seen a huge growth in kind of a mobile or portable camera system that you can take and put in different areas like, hotspots and targets, or even into events, right? Where maybe you don't have cameras always in the places that you need for where the traffic is going to be. And so I think that gives these agencies so much more flexibility in how they're providing safety, especially managing the resources, right? We're putting the humans back where they need to be. And that is where they need to physically go and help a person or, to take action in their role of being a police officer, firefighter, or emergency services. So it's really interesting how I think widely adopted video is and how it's growing into, 911. 911 has been around as real-time operations forever, and it's even growing so much more now, also partnering, with other organizations or departments within that organization. So really fascinating on the mobile abilities.
Yeah, I was going to end. It's interesting that kind of the journey has been taking private security cameras and making them available to 911 to what you're seeing and what you described as public safety, saying, hey, listen, we're going to deploy our own cameras because we know there's a known hotspot or issue in the community. So really good example. Appreciate you sharing that, both of you. Cooper, so folks are interested. They want to learn more about Eagle Eye. They want to personally connect with you. What do they do?
Yeah, so you can always go to EEN.com. That's just for eagleeyenetworks.com. Learn more. We've got a lot of different ways to get into our marketing team, our sales organization to learn more and go a little bit deeper here. If anybody would like to personally connect with me, you can find me, Cooper Briscoe, at LinkedIn.com. I don't know if that was an official address or not. I'm on LinkedIn. My name is Cooper Briscoe is what I meant to say. Please feel free to reach out and connect. Thanks, Cassidy.
I love that. And by the way, thanks for being a wonderful partner, both personally with the work that you're doing with us and as a company, Eagle Eye. We've enjoyed the partnership and look forward to bringing this, countrywide and maybe globally someday. So thank you. And Karin,
I like that. And right back at
pleasure
you.
as always.
Thank you for the partnership.
Thank you.
You're
And
Cooper.
Karin,
Great to see you again.
Likewise.
thanks, everybody. Have a good day.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of The Safety Gap. This podcast is powered by Rapid SOS, where we're dedicated to closing the safety gap through intelligent safety technology. If you're passionate about creating a safer, smarter world, be sure to follow The Safety Gap wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. For more information and to catch up on past episodes, visit us at rapidsos.com.